Hello and welcome to the Voice of TOD. I'm Tom and today we're going to talk about my favourite TV show of all time, Firefly. In this episode we're going to take a look at Trash, episode 11 in the series, and a return of I'm going to say fan favourite character, and the fun side keepers that we know the show for. We're going to continue with a new video each Wednesday until we get to Serenity, the film that rounded out the main story set up here. These reviews are filled with spoilers, so if you haven't seen Firefly, I think you should. I really recommend it if you haven't gathered by this point. But I mean, I've been saying that for years. But go watch it, because it's fantastic. And with that, let's talk about Trash. We're going to take a look at what our heroes are up to and some of my favourite moments in this episode. I don't know why I say that, because I basically recite the episode and interject to the bits I love. But that's what we're going to do. You guys know how this works. You've probably been watching these long enough to get an idea of how rambly I am. This episode starts... It's another flashback episode, let's put it that way. I hate these things. I don't hate this episode. I think this episode is really well done. I just don't like the flashback thing. Just in general, I think it's been done badly more than it's been done well. But I'm not going to hold that against this, because this is a really strong episode with some great character moments. But we open on a desert, with our captain sat on a rock, stranded, clearly, and also naked. This actually doesn't seem too far out of the realm of possibility for a standard day for Malcolm Reynolds though, does it? Let's be honest. Anyway, into the episode properly. 72 hours earlier, Mal is on what looks like a busy part of a small rock, and we meet Monty, an old vet from the war and friend to the crew of Serenity. Seems like he runs a smuggling ring, and Mal is here to pick up a load and do a run for him because work has dried up a little bit. Something that we will talk about later. But Monty has a new woman in his life. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that new woman is Bridget. You know Bridget, right? Everybody knows Bridget. Well, you may know her by Saffron. After a scuffle with Mal and Saffron, Monty does see the truth, and he has her thrown off the ship. One of the best lines in this episode, one that I clearly relate to, is, "I shaved my beard for you, devil woman. I would never shave my beard for anybody. It ain't happening. I might clean it up a little bit because it is getting a bit long, but Monty made a huge sacrifice, and I really feel his pain with this breakup. Just what a way to bring Saffron back. So Saffron, or Bridget. I'm going to call her Saffron for most of this, but we're going to dive deeper into her story, which just brilliant. I absolutely love Christina Hendricks. I love this character. It's quite weird how much I love this character. It does help that she is insanely attractive. But anyway, let's focus on what we're here to do. There is a job that will serve as this week's caper, but there is a little scene I want to talk about first. After the scuffle, Mal returns to the ship. Saffron is nowhere to be seen. Serenity picks him up, they pick up the cargo that they're smuggling. Everything is fine. Mal goes to see Inara at Inara's request. Another great scene between the two of them. Now, I might be reading too much into this, but I think that this scene is the start of something that is very big moving forward, which I'm going to dance around, but it will hopefully all become clear when we reach the end of these reviews. But it turns out that Mal has been dodging work and jobs within the inner planets, the core worlds, and Inara hasn't had work as a companion for a few weeks. Now, This argument does get a little bit personal, and Mal takes a lot of offence to being called a petty thief. Well, being called petty. He's fine with thief. This scene works for me on a few levels. One, I just love Mal and Inara together. I think they have great chemistry, I think it shows, and I think both Nathan Fillion and Morena Baccarin are incredibly talented people. But it is insinuated by Inara there could be a little element of this that Mal is trying to keep her from taking clients, to keep her close. We do know that their relationship has slowly been boiling in the background. It is mentioned in the argument, as I've said, and it is maybe an outside theory on this one, because ultimately Mal, I don't necessarily know he thinks that way first, but subconsciously there could be an element of truth to that. Inara does make some good points though, and Mal might have been a little bit more open to them if he hadn't just had a run-in with his ex-wife. Now, I also think, and I'm thinking into the future, and hindsight is an amazing thing here, that this is the start of where we pick up with these characters. I'm trying to dance around it, but for Serenity, which we're coming up on fast. This is episode 11 of 14. I am starting to just piece together little bits of that. Again, I could be completely wrong, but we'll get to that when we get to Serenity. But anyway, this argument leads to Mal taking Saffron's job on, as she's been stuffed into a cargo crate similar to how River was transported on board, and is currently on Serenity. To be fair to her, I mean, she is a criminal mastermind, but the job is sound. Sneak into a highly guarded complex and steal an extremely rare and very valuable artifact from history, the Lassiter laser pistol. The current owner, a Mr. Duran Hamer, is a former Alliance bioengineer, and it sounds like he did some terrible things in the war to increase his own wealth and artifact collection. Inara wants no part in this job, but the rest of the crew do come around, and the pay is very good. Zoe does have issues, but after clocking Saffron squarely in the face, she's happy to play her part, and I bet that felt good. As I mentioned, the Mark is Duran Hamer. He lives on a floating estate, part of the rich elite of Bellerophon, which is it's really nice sort of area that they've created for this. It feels very rich, very affluent. But anyway, onto the plan. Kaylee will hack the trash compactor drone that removes the rubbish from these floating estates, so that when Mal and Saffron get in there and they get hold of the pistol, they can just throw it in the disposal chute, call the drone, and it will be moved to a location of Kaylee's choosing to be picked up. The crew will agree to meet up there, and it turns out the planet has a fairly large and uninhabited desert, which is where we see Mal sat at the start of the episode. So it's simple. What could go wrong? Well, this is Saffron, so everything. Side note. Before the caper begins, knowing that Saffron is on board and they're just in the planning stages, Jane pays a little visit to Simon and River, telling them to stay confined to quarters, just so Saffron doesn't learn about them, which I find a little bit odd, because Saffron's already travelled with this crew. Simon and River were part of the celebrations when her and Mal got married. She probably knows they're there. She may not know who they are, but she definitely knows there's other people on on Serenity. But without picking up on that thread far too much, I'm willing to forgive that. This scene is really meant for River to do her witchy mind boggly stuff, the psychic stuff, and she learns of Jane's little secret and tells Simon that Jane is the one who called the feds on Ariel. So again, we're looping back into previous jobs. really nicely done. And that will play a part later in this episode. But back to the plan. So the crew are ready to do their part. Inara heads off to see a select few clients on this very affluent world. She wants no part in this, which is quite wise. She doesn't even want to know any of the details. And it's actually really nice to see her and Zoe talking. It's a pairing that we don't see often, and there just seems to be this... I mean, again, you've got two very charismatic characters, two very charismatic actors. And it's just a shame that we've never really seen any Inara Zoe scenes before. But that's just how it goes when you've got such an amazingly talented crew and cast of characters. Just incredible. But anyway, Inara's out the picture, so it's off to work. Mal and Saffron head into the estate as flower deliverers, and the rest of our heroes get to hacking the drone. Easier than it sounds, as Jane and Kaylee are on top of Serenity, with Wash and his many amazing facial expressions try to keep the ship steady and close to the container. Jane ends up electrocuting himself and is knocked out cold, but luckily Zoe and Kaylee manage to finish the hack moments before the drain takes the trash compartment away. Which means everything went smoothly for Mal and Saffron, right? Nah. Of course it's not. They had no issues getting into the complex and no real issues disabling the security systems to get hold of the Lassiter laser pistol. The big problem is that we run into Duran Hamer, or should we say Saffron, Bridget, maybe Yolanda's first husband. Now, I don't know how much of this story is true, but we do explore Saffron's backstory here, and it's very fitting for the character, and it has some quite hilarious little elements to it. You've got Hamer relaying what he thinks, being all infatuated with Saffron, because why wouldn't you be? You have Saffron playing the role of the estranged wife returned to her husband, and Mal just being Mal in the corner. Fantastic. I also love the yo-saff-brig that Mal calls her. It's a great name, and that's probably only 3 of the multitude of aliases that Saffron has had, I'm very sure. She's like the Firefly's universe Black Widow. Anyway, Hamer is deeply in love with his estranged wife and is blindsided by her return, but he isn't stupid and has called security. Now, Hamer doesn't seem like the big bad that Saffron made him out to be, but who's to say? He's an alliance type, he could have done anything in the war, but this whole thing is a web of lies and deceit. But after a brush with the security forces, Mal and Saffron do manage to escape in the shuttle. And they have a little moment together on their way to the rendezvous point in which Saffron again tricks Mal. Because Mal is a little naive, let's be honest, he's always had that edge to him. And she leaves him naked in the desert, because he's seen her naked, it's only fair. And this is where we started the episode. She heads off to claim her prize as we learn that Serenity has also been sabotaged, meaning that the crew won't make the rendezvous and Saffron is free to claim the pistol all by herself, stiffing Mal and Serenity out of their share of the profits. There is a silver lining to this story though, because Jane is okay. According to Simon, he's damaged his spine in his fall, but he'll make a full recovery. Now, Simon does have a little chat with Jane about his traitorous ways. A brilliant scene. Absolutely fantastic. Jane has been trying to make amends, and I think River picks up on the shame that he seems to feel about what he did. Now, Simon isn't the big puffy alpha dog type, and as a doctor, he will always treat Jane to the best of his ability, healing his wounds, stitching him, sewing him under his scalpel, as Simon puts it. Jane has nothing to fear, there will be no repercussions, And from Simon's point of view, they are on the same crew, they are both part of the same family, and Simon is playing the bigger man, which is exactly what his character is about, and it works perfectly. But anyway, he doesn't need to hurt or threaten Jane, because River can kill him with her brain. That's another iconic moment in Firefly. After being stiffed out of the Prophet, Mal stranded on the desert, we cut to Saffron in the middle of the trash compacted cargo crate thing, rummaging around, covered in filth and muck and who knows what. It's just gross. But she can't find the Lassiter laser pistol. Because, funnily enough, it's in safe hands with Inara, who is sitting watching Saffron struggle. Yes, there was a backup plan all along. Inara, I would say, probably tempted to kill Saffron here, just locks her in the compartment for the authorities to find later on, and heads to Mal and Serenity. Now, Shuttle 2, which is the shuttle that Mal and Saffron used, I'm guessing is just returned to Serenity at some point as well, with Saffron being trapped and out the picture. But when Inara returns to Mal, 100% naked and 100% pleased with himself that the plan went great. How else could this episode end but with a naked Mal, a dumbfounded crew, and a big win for our heroes? This episode is back to the chaotic craziness of the little side quests that this show, I think, is famous for, and the old Wild West feel. The humour's back. Not that it was ever really missing, but it's just a much more light-hearted episode. Especially after last week's War Stories, which, as we covered, is very dark and a very different tone. But the crew are together, Serenity is fixed. Now all they need to do is find a fence. I think these episodes, while standalone, and things like this you kind of could watch pretty much in any order. It just works. It's just fun. There's things in here with, with the Saffron episode specifically, with our Mrs. Reynolds in this one, it is very much focused on her and Mal, and it works. We get her backstory. She is still around that we know of. Again, it's the season 2 that we never got. But I think this is great. I think the writing is always on it's just perfect. Everything about this is perfect. Everything feels true to the heroes that we know so far. It's just brilliant TV. From my mind. I can't speak for anybody else, but I just love this. But anyway, that brings us to episode 12. The Message, next Wednesday. This episode brings in a ghost from the Unification War, for our captain and first mate, and a pretty cunning looking Jane. If you want to see more of me, you can find me on Twitch, where I'm currently playing through Mass Effect 3, and getting my ass handed to me, to be fair. But I am looking to shake up the streaming a little bit, bring in a second game, an actual schedule for what we're going to be doing from next week. But for now, if you want to join me, check out my Twitter, link in the description below. For when I go live, any other updates, any other ramblings, any videos that I put out, everything at the minute is going through Twitter. If you want to join me for those. But as always, if you enjoyed this or any of my other content, please do subscribe, hit the like, drop a comment, say hi. It all helps with the YouTube stuff, and I really do enjoy talking to you guys. But thank you very much for watching this. I'll see you all in the next one.